Hello everyone, and welcome back. This week we're going to be talking about your research essay, specifically talking about what is a research essay and what you will be completing this week, which is the creation of your thesis for your research essay, what you're going to be researching, and an outline for your research essay so you can kind of begin to get an idea of the structure that you'll be putting into place. So let's go ahead and let's get started by talking about what a research essay is. Now, a research essay or a research paper is the culmination of research, critical thinking, source evaluation, and organization. Specifically, it's the culmination of research done on the topic. The writer will also be using critical thinking skills in order to apply that research to the question being presented. Source evaluation to make sure those sources are accurate or those sources are applicable to the question that's being asked. And organization, making sure that your paper is organized as such that any reader could read your paper and understand what you're seeking to understand and what research you have completed. A research paper takes a topic or a question and seeks to answer that question through researching relevant sources to the topic or the topics involved. So, you can write a paper about most anything whenever it comes to a research essay. The topics are generally very open, but most research essays tend to pose a question and seek to answer that question through researching relevant sources to what topic is being asked about. A research paper isn't just a summary of your sources, but is a written exploration of the research you have studied and the conclusions you have come to. Therefore, it's important to choose a topic that allows you to explore, not just summarize your sources. A research paper is not meant to be a summary paper. You could write about jellyfish, for example, in your research essay, but you couldn't write about what a jellyfish is and have that be a research paper. Now, if you were to write a research paper that asks why jellyfish live in certain areas of the ocean, such as why they might live in a place with more currents, or why they may live in a place that has very warm water, things like that, that would be an example of a research paper that you can complete. That would be an example of a research paper that would be a good topic. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the type of research paper you'll be writing. The type of research paper you'll be writing for this class is what's known as an analytical research paper. This paper focuses on answering a posed question for which the writer preferably has no previous stance, and their research evolves into an answer for that question. For example, research topics such as how should one interpret the poem Beowulf might end up evolving into Beowulf is a poem whose purpose it was to serve as an example of deviation from social norms for 10th and 11th century monastic communities. It's your thesis comes from the research question that you pose, the research topic that you've decided on. Going back to the jellyfish example, what may be posed as why do jellyfish live in a warm water area may be answered, it may evolve into jellyfish live in a warm water area because there's more food source there, there's more currents to move them around, and any other sort of answer that you may glean from your research you're conducting. Now, choosing a topic for your research paper, when it comes to choosing a topic, I won't be assigning you topics for your research assignment. You're welcome to choose, and I fully recommend choosing a topic that interests you. Because of the fact that you will be doing a lot of research on this topic, I absolutely 100% recommend choosing a topic that interests you. I recommend also choosing a topic that allows you to ask a research question. This may be a simple question. If you wanted to write about a paper, if you wanted to write about a book or a television show or something like that, it may be a simple question such as how can we interpret this story? However, your research question may be as complex as does working in groups provide a benefit for us? But this research question allows you to have a jumping off point for your actual research. Now, I want to note, big asterisk, I want to note 100% that in no way, shape, or form do you have to have your research done this week. You do not have to have all of your research done this week. However, I would recommend choosing a topic and doing a little bit of preliminary research, making sure you have at least a few sources or a few parts or topics that could potentially answer the question that you are presenting. Some research examples, research questions could include something like street art and graffiti. Why is street art and graffiti so popular nowadays? School work dynamics. Is it possible to balance a career and school life? How does television create a common opinion? What dynamics are best when working in groups? But the possibilities are, frankly, endless. You could have so many different ideas for writing a research paper that honestly, the possibilities for a research paper are endless. So now that we know kind of more about the topic for our research paper, let's go ahead and let's talk about, well, a little bit more about talking about that, like a little bit more on developing our thesis. After we create a research question and we found research that helps us to answer that question, we can decide on our thesis. This will involve your question and the answers that you found. For example, for our previous question of how is working in a group beneficial, working in a group is beneficial because it allows us to see problems with our solution, allows for more creative solutions, and allows us to solve more difficult problems than we could alone. In order to facilitate easier writing of your papers, your answers should generally have about 2 to 3 parts or topics that you could research and build on in your paper. For example, for the previous one, working in a group is beneficial because it allows us to see problems with our solution, allows for more creative solution, and allows us to see solve more difficult problems. This one right here gives us 3 specific areas to look into. How does working in groups allow us to see problems with solutions? How does working in groups allow for more creative solutions? And how does working in group allow us to solve more difficult problems? What are some examples of these that have happened? What are some examples of these? What are some things that have been recorded? Have there been any incidents where working in a group allowed us to see a problem? Either way, each of these topics would get their own paragraph in your greater research paper. But that part refers more specifically to your outline, which we will talk about in a second. For your assignment, and this will be posted on ThinkWave, what I would like you guys to do whenever you're developing your thesis is I would like you to tell me what your research question was and what your thesis is for your paper. So basically, what was your starting research question and how did that research question evolve into your thesis? The example in this, of course, was how is working in groups beneficial? And the answer to that, the thesis, was working in groups is beneficial because it allows us to see problems with our solution, allows for more creative solutions, and allows us to solve more difficult problems. Hi, T'Challa. Sorry, if you hear any noise, that's my cat. That's my cat, who is a sweetheart. But decided that sleeping in my room was the best idea for this. Let's go ahead and let's talk about structuring our outline now. And so, whatever comes for your outline of your paper, this is still going to be a 5-paragraph minimum paper. This 5-paragraph minimum paper includes an introduction, a conclusion, and 3 main paragraphs. Although, as always, you're welcome to write more than the minimum if you feel as though your paper would be better served by having multiple paragraphs talking about one point in your thesis. Please go ahead and have more than 5 paragraphs in your paper. Regardless, you still have to have that 5-paragraph minimum, the introduction, the conclusion, and 3 main paragraphs. I recommend using the same outline that we've used before, breaking the answer to your research question into 3 parts, and using at least a paragraph minimum to elaborate onto each of these parts, and to elaborate about the research you've conducted, the sources you found things like that, what parts support, what parts don't. But let's get more into the nitty-gritty of things. So your first paragraph is your introduction and should include your thesis statement, i.e., it should include the question you seek to answer and the possible answers you find in your research that you'll be covering. So whenever you're writing this out, it should be for your introductory paragraph, you should have your thesis statement, and you should have what topics are being covered included in the introduction. When it comes to the next 3 paragraphs, these next 3 paragraphs are going to be your main body paragraphs. These should cover in detail what you have found about each possible answer in your research. Generally, the research you present will support the answer that you found. So, for example, for your body paragraphs, your second paragraph would be topic A. If we go back to our group example, this would be, it allows us to see problems of our solution. And then we would talk about the reasons that we found that working in a group allows us to see problems of our solution. Same thing for what would be paragraph 3. This one would cover, it allows us for more creative solutions. Therefore, we would cover what reasons we found that this allows us to have more creative solutions, of working in a group allows us to have more creative solutions. Topic C would be, in our example, allows us to solve more difficult problems. And once again, we would have our reasons, our sources, why we are able to have these more difficult problems be solved. Basically, with your main paragraphs, whenever you're outlining, you're wanting to have both the answer to your question and then reasons why that is an answer to the question that you've presented. You want to have support for your positing that specific part is an answer to the question that you have asked. What I recommend doing whenever you're talking about creating this outline for your main paragraphs is that if you have research that you found that has talked about a specific part of your outline, you do not have to include it in the outline that you submit to me, but you may want to include what part of your paper that source could potentially go with. That way you don't have to go back and refine that source whenever we work on writing an annotated bibliography for next week. Then, finally, we have the conclusion paragraph, and the conclusion paragraph ties everything together. This is where, again, you will restate your thesis and your topics that were covered in your answer. This is also where you'll be giving a call to action for your reader to do further research on the topic. So the conclusion is effectively a restating of what was covered in the previous body paragraphs. If we go back to that example, we would restate our thesis, our thesis statement of working in a group. We would restate our topics that we covered, problems and solutions, allow for creative solutions, and allows us to see more difficult problems. And we would also put in some form of a call to action for further research on the topic. If this paper has interested you, you please look further into group dynamics, or things like that, or something else. Basically, we want to have the reader be interested enough in our topic, in our idea, that they do further research on their own. However, with that covers everything you'll need to know for writing your outline and for giving your research question and thesis statement. Whenever it comes to submitting this week, this will be further described in the assignment on ThinkWave, where you should have gotten access to this video. But what I require for this week basically is your research question. What are you wanting to research? And your thesis statement. What was the answer to your research question, basically? So, I need your research question, which in this instance, for example, for the example that we've been working with, would be, your research question would be, how is working in a group beneficial? Your thesis would be, working in a group is beneficial because of the problem, allows us to see problems and solution, allows for more creative solution, allows us to see more difficult problems. And then I also need your outline where you kind of show, okay, this is what I'm going to be talking about with my paper, and here's the reasons why these are solutions to my research question. But with that, I believe that's going to be all I have this week. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to call or email me. I'd be happy to assist with anything you need for this week. And stay safe, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well with what's going on. And I know this is going to be a little bit difficult, but you all got this. Google's a great resource for you to start getting an idea for what you would like to cover, if there's any research already done on what you would like to cover. And if you're wanting to look into more of the scholarly side of things, which this assignment will require you to have about 3 scholarly sources, you may want to look into Google Scholar, where you can research some sources like that. If you're having trouble finding sources on Google or on Google Scholar, you may also want to look at your public library, where you can start to see if there are any books that are available as ebooks for you to access. But with that, I will leave you guys for this week.